There's somebody in that building. Holy shit. What is going on, guys? Today we are checking out what is left of Fort Ord, a former army base that is located, that was located slightly north of Monterey, kind of in the center of the Monterey Bay. Beautiful real estate, beautiful area. You can see this landscape. We're pretty much like in a bunch of sand dunes right now. Ton of coastal plants, got the iceberg stuff, the cypress, really beautiful. But it closed down officially in 1995, and a lot of the land was repurposed for housing, stores, but most noticeably for CSU Monterey Bay, which currently occupies the majority of the former land of Fort Ord. Most of the buildings that you used to be able to see driving on Highway 1 have been demolished. Sadly, I remember being younger, driving by, seeing a ton of the old barracks and just thinking it was the coolest thing. Most of them have been demolished at this point to make way for development for housing and other things. But there are some old structures still remaining, and that's kind of the point of the video. This is a little bit more kind of like urban exploration, I guess you could say, which isn't really my normal type of video I make, but just wanted to see what's left and share it with you guys. So let's check it out. So we are at the south part of the campus right now. I think this is technically still part of CSU Monterey Bay, but there's a series of buildings that are still standing down here. It seems to be some sort of housing or barracks. I was looking at old topo maps, and these seem to have been made at some point in the 1940s, shortly after World War II ended, most likely. And I think they really, based off of those old topo maps, I think they really scaled up the building and development of this base here. You know, as the Cold War was approaching, we're really ramping up our military activities. All right, I gotta figure out how to get through this. So the majority of the buildings that were built when the base was first established in the 1920s have been demolished at this point. The area that we're in right now, I believe these buildings were built at some point in the 1940s, possibly during World War II or shortly after, when we were trying to scale up our military activities as we were approaching the Cold War. But this whole section right here, and I think this is an old tennis court right here, you can see there's just all sorts of junk. Big ass spider web right there, holy shit. Can you guys see that? Look at that giant spider web just in the center here. Tons of junk here, people dumping crap. You see this old tennis court, but these big blocks here, I'm assuming there are some kind of a barracks or something to that extent. They're still standing compared to the old wooden ones that are closer to Highway 1. These would be a lot more costly to demolish. So that's probably why they're still standing here. Spray paint, whole bunch of garbage. And I'm really not one for trespassing, breaking in, anything like that. It's not my cup of tea. But with this place here, there's no fences around, which is shocking. You can kind of just walk up to these buildings, which is why you can see probably, you know, that's why every single window has been busted out, and there's a ton of graffiti, a ton of garbage. Oh my gosh, can you actually go inside? Guys, I don't know if I'm ready to go inside here. That might be too much. Nope. I feel like I've seen too many horror movies. Oh, that's fucking creepy. Holy shit. That'd be really fun to explore though if I had like a bit more people with me, but holy shit. That's how we know this is not an urban exploration channel. This is a history channel, okay? I gotta come out here with a team of people to be able to tackle something like that. I'm kind of a weenie, I'm not gonna lie. I'm really worried about walking on a nail or something like that here. There's just a ton of junk. But it's so crazy to me that this is like, and I don't want to get it, you know, like shut down. I hope, you know, people can come here and enjoy it or whatever, but it's just so crazy that there's no fences around here and you can just walk in a building, in a abandoned building like that in California, in this area. I guess technically we're not in the Bay anymore, so that's probably why it's a little bit more lax. If this was in the Bay Area, that would feel like it would be shut down super quick. Gosh, look at this though. Also open right here. Hello? It's not what I was planning to do today. Urban exploration to that level. I thought everything was going to be closed up, but surprisingly there's doors open, they're not closed, so I don't know. But the whole point of this YouTube channel is to document history in California, both natural and cultural, that hasn't been, or before it's been removed, more or less. Because, you know, real estate in California is so expensive that it's so much easier for places or for companies and entities to bulldoze these historic structures and start new, compared to renovating or just letting them sit. So stuff like this is only here for a very brief blip of time, typically, before it is demolished, bulldozed, removed, and gone from the face of the earth. So the whole point of the channel is to document this stuff before it's gone so people have it to reference. The secondary reason that I made this YouTube channel as well is to motivate people to go outside and to check things out. The whole, like the first videos that I made, and still like making videos about this kind of stuff is just, it's things that I'm interested in, I want to check out in person, because there typically aren't videos about these topics or about these places, or the things that I'm interested in aren't being covered by the people who are making those videos. So I go to check it out and take video, and I hope that other people will get the same kind of enjoyment that I get when I check out these places in person. But I hope that these videos make other people want to go out and see these places in person as well too, because it's completely different seeing something on video versus checking it out in person. Some fun facts about Fort Ord is that one of them being, it had very famous people attend for basic training back in the 60s or 50s. One of them would be Jerry Garcia, the main singer and songwriter of the Grateful Dead. Another one would be Jimi Hendrix. Can you believe that? Jimi Hendrix would have been stomping around here back in the 60s, way back then, or would it have been late 50s? I need to go and check. Regardless, a fresh-faced Jimi Hendrix would have been hanging out here back in the day, maybe in one of these little housing areas. It's very cool to think about. There's somebody in that building. Holy shit. I'm good off that. Whew. See guys, this is why I don't do urban exploration. I'm kind of a weenie. There's somebody in that building though. Holy shit. I thought I heard music or something. It would be interesting to go back with the video to see if you can actually pick that up as well too, but there was somebody talking in there. Oh, jeez. On the tennis court now, but I'm sure those people are just, I don't know if they're students or homeless or whatever, but definitely did not want to find out if what their intentions were. I'm sure they're probably just hanging out, and they're probably equally as confused why there's some dude talking to himself with a camera nearby, if they did hear me. But that was pretty freaky. I've never ran into that. You know that this place is long neglected, not only from how massive and unkept these trees are, but then this tree right here, which is actually decent size. It sprouted through the freaking asphalt. Look at that. That's crazy. That's a huge tree that sprouted straight through the asphalt. This place has been long neglected for a serious amount of time. And I don't know why there isn't more effort. Oh, there's a coyote right there. Oh, that's a coyote. Fucking, look at that fucking coyote. It's limping. Okay, guys. This is, the amount of shit that I'm seeing checking this place out is crazy. People living in these abandoned buildings, coyote walking by like right in front of me. This is actually insane, I'm not gonna lie. But I think this kind of highlights the reason why California often boards these places up as well too, is that there's such a huge homeless population here that anything that's kind of unclaimed, unkept, or abandoned, people will typically board up there and live in it, you know, instead of having like a tent. And this place right here, to be honest, is pretty peaceful. It's very scenic. You're right by the ocean. If I was homeless, honestly, I feel like I would like to, this would be like a good place to post up. It would be pretty scary, to be completely honest, but that's the reason why typically places like this are fenced off, boarded up, and locked tight. It's very strange that this place is open for people to check out. There's no fences, there's no signs. There are signs, holy shit. Look at that fucking coyote looking at me right there. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. This was supposed to be a fun, historic thing, but it turned into a very creepy urban exploration type video. And this is just one of the places that I was trying to check out with some of the newer buildings from the 1940s. But it's, if you go to a place like this, I mean, that's what's in the ballpark, what you can expect to find, because we're not super far away from a populated area here. We're very close to Seaside and Monterey. So if a place like this with these huge structures that aren't, I mean, the windows are busted out, but they're in decent condition. There's not a fence up and there's no signs. Of course there's gonna be people living in there. All right, on to the next place. We're gonna check out to see one of two churches that are still standing, and then some of the original barracks as well too. We're gonna see if any of those are still up. I think most of them have been wiped out, but from what I could tell from some pictures, there might be a couple left. So let's see. All right, so this next area that we are checking out is the equestrian center of the former Fort Ord military base. And they've actually kept it. I see a lot of like horse trailers and whatnot over back there, so I think it's still pretty active. And I see that these are Original buildings, probably with the same colors that were being used back in the day. But I'm surprised to see that there are windows busted out here, because it just seems like these places are, this area is really well taken care of. But broken windows. And then, what would this have been? See a Frappuccino in there? Interesting. I don't know if there would have been dogs. Oh, I think this part of this was like a, it was like the vet. I think there was a vet on site. So I think that's probably what that would have been, some sort of dog animal area, not just for horses. And then there's this. This looks like some sort of housing or office building for the vet or equestrian area. These definitely look like horsey kind of buildings. There's some horses right there, pretty cool. Some of these buildings, such as this one, have more precautions set up, like some metal around the windows so those don't get broken out. Metal at the bottom so people don't go under. And because of that, all the windows are intact, and it is actually boarded up, unlike those other buildings that we were looking at. And then these down here, I'm assuming maybe were some kind of barracks down here. It's hard to say exactly what these were, or if they were just some kind of storage. However, I'm leaning a little bit more towards some sort of a barracks for basic training or something to that extent. But these are definitely OG from the topo maps. I saw these sets of buildings right here, so that's cool. These are original, and these are original right here. But you can see out here the sea of like new housing that's popped up, and I mean it's a good thing. I mean, I wouldn't say this is necessarily affordable housing, but it's definitely a good thing to have more houses in this area, as California is really quite expensive. But I don't know if it really solves the problem of being able to afford an actual house when the houses that are going up cost, you know, like $700,000-800,000. I might be wrong, they might be less, but I can't imagine that they are. All right, so we just checked out the veterinarian area and equestrian area, and we saw a few of these, what I believe to be were likely barracks, possibly some sort of storage, but the windows make me think that it was more likely some kind of barracks. Next, we are going to see the churches, at least one of them hopefully is still standing, and then some of the barracks. There used to be a sea of these barracks that were right next to Highway 1. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about who have driven by over the years, but as far as I know, most of them have been demolished. So we're gonna see if there's any still standing and get as close as we can. So I was driving by and I noticed these buildings right here. There's this big fence up here. They clearly don't want people to go in there, but I just wanted to get a closer look to see what's going on with these buildings, because these are clearly original. And it's kind of from that view over there when we were in the vet area, it's kind of on the other side of that. So these are that original kind of yellow color here. Difficult to say what they were though. I see windows. I hope it's not too shaky with the this image stabilization on. Some windows up at the top for ventilation. For some reason there's a clothes hanger on that one, which is pretty funny. That looks to be some kind of newer modular kind of thing right there. And then this one looks pretty old. Let's see what we can see in here. Just some kind of building. Security camera on that one. For some reason this one's still being used, it's not blocked off. But these two right here, which look super old and neglected, the roofs are kind of falling apart. I don't think these guys are being used for much. And surprised they haven't been demolished, because they're in pretty rough shape. But wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Here, let's take a peek over the fence. You guys can see and tell me. I can kind of see through the fence a little bit, but not too much. This is probably so weird. People who live in this area seeing me look around like a weirdo. I just like history, guys. What can I say? It's not that crazy. Maybe it is. All right, so this is one of two churches that not only I saw on the Google aerial view, but then also on the street view as well too, as recent as 2024. It's hard to say how old this is. I'm sure there's some record. I don't know if I saw it on I was looking at a topo map from 1940, and I don't think I saw it on that one. This one clearly says no trespassing here, but I don't see it this way. It's so sad though. There's garbage everywhere here that's not fenced off. It's I don't know what it is with illegal dumping, but that's one of my gripes, is like illegal dumping, just dumping trash wherever, is so insane to me. Because it's like, just find a dumpster at like a corporate building or something like that. I feel like that's easier than finding a remote, unwatched area to dump your garbage. It's literally easier to find a dumpster by like a Safeway or something like that. All right, so I just peeked in there. I don't know if I'd be able to get a good shot with my camera, but it looks like it's currently just being used for storage. And to a degree, it is being, I don't know if I would say maintained, but I guess it's being maintained. It's not too bad. The plants are a little bit overgrown. The grass is dead. Paint's not horrible. Could use paint, but they have most of the windows kind of blocked off. There are some broken windows and it's a little bit boarded up, but it's not too bad compared to those other buildings that we saw at the south part of the campus. All right, so let's check these out. I think these have to be some kind of old barracks. I don't know if the kind of classic ones that you would always see off of Highway 1, but kind of similar. I don't know if somebody over there is checking this stuff out as well too, but there's just so much garbage. It's crazy what people will just leave behind. All the windows here are busted out. There's some windows boarded up, but the ones that aren't boarded up are just, the glass is shattered. All the doors are open. From a safety standpoint, it's starting to make sense why they started demolishing these things, because it's just such a huge liability for the state. Go check some of this stuff out. There's no signs that say no trespassing, so why not check it out? I don't think I'm gonna go in any of these buildings, but just checking them out. Tons of garbage, all rotted, these steps. Look at that. That's pretty horrifying. Whole bunch of rotted wood. Oh my gosh. Holy shit. This is, oh my gosh. That's crazy. That board, look at this. Holy crap. This is such a, oh my gosh. Such a liability. That's crazy that the state hasn't completely condemned these. There used to be an old road that went through here, it looks like. Sidewalk right here. This has to be maybe 40s construction. There's a hot water heater right there. That's probably some sort of utilities area. Tons of graffiti, trash everywhere, like every other place at this facility. It smells like garbage. Gosh, I wouldn't even feel... Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Would not feel safe even walking up that. That one says apartment D up there. I don't know if you can make that out. Seeing then it's interesting. It's like this is... I feel like somebody might be living in this one, to be completely honest, just because this door is like a little bit more taken care of to that. So I'm not going to be too invasive with that, but it almost seems like, you know, there's some boxes here and there's like a little floor mat over there. Yeah, I think somebody was for sure living here at some point. Water heater in there. I think they probably scrapped all the copper from that, it looks like, because it's all ripped up. I see some graffiti in there. It says Cynthia. Jeez. It's just crazy to think about people who were living their lives in here when the US was in the midst of the Cold War. This was a bustling place, tons of activity. Now it's completely, you know, what is left of it is just totally falling apart. Look at those stairs. At least the other stairs were kind of together. This is all just a mangled mess here. This is definitely more urban exploration than I've ever done in my life in one sitting here. Seeing this playground here, this makes me think that maybe this was some sort of like family's quarters over here for officers or something, because this is definitely a old school jungle gym here. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time in there actually, but a dude walked by. He's a friendly dude. I'm pretty sure he's homeless. But he had like a screwdriver in his hand, so like I wasn't trying to find, like he seemed like, honestly, he just seemed friendly and didn't seem like aggressive or anything like that, but wasn't trying to find out, you know, wasn't trying to take any chances, so I just got out of there. But it just makes me like, walking through that complex that I just did made me realize that like there's a reason why California fences up anything that's kind of abandoned or not being used. It's because people will turn it into they'll, you know, vandalize it, or they'll start living in it. And when it's in a neglected state like that and people start living in it, that is a liability for the state. And it's kind of sad because it highlights the fact that there is a shortage of housing. There was somebody in that complex actually that they had like little Halloween lights set up. They had the only door that looked like it was like in good condition, and then the windows weren't all like punched out. So there's somebody clearly living there, taking care of it. Not taking care of it, but you know, not just destroying it like all the other rooms are there. So this is like the perfect contrast though, where you can kind of get an idea. So Highway 1 is a little bit down that way. You can see all this area here that's been demolished and they're flattening the land. There's a shopping plaza down there. All of this used to be Fort Ord right here. And then you can see some of what's left over here in the distance, kind of. Those are the buildings that I just checked out right here. Those are the ones that I just checked out up close. And it kind of gives you an idea of what this would have looked like back in the day. This is all new stuff right here. All of this would have been Fort Ord right here. Everything that you see here, that whole shopping plaza, all down that way, just barracks and administrative buildings, weaponry, all sorts of stuff. And then now it's all getting demoed and flattened. So it's cool that there's even something left over there, but that's not gonna last very long. And I can tell because those buildings are just totally in a state of disrepair. You can see the roof on that one is collapsing. All of the windows are busted out, hasn't been painted in years. All the stairs are broken. Definitely plan to scrap they're planning to scrap those for sure and develop it into something else. And it's kind of like, I get why, because stuff, you know, California's growing and need more stuff for people, but it's a little bit sad to see these buildings going, but it seems like nobody else really cares. I don't know, but just the whole point is to document this stuff before it's gone, so people have an idea of what it maybe used to look like back in the day before it's all gone, and then we don't really have much kind of video to reference. So the next thing I want to check out is the other church, which was next to a ton of old barracks that I think are all gone, but I believe the church is still there. It might be fenced off, but we'll go check it out and see how close we can get. All right, so we're nearby the other church and saw this old kind of hall. I don't know what else you would call it, if it's like a mess hall or like exhibition thing, but it's definitely old, at least from the 40s or the 50s, you can tell. Who knows, they would have been giving some sort of like addresses in there, something. But there's a fence around where the church is, but there's no, it's open, and it doesn't say no trespassing, so I think I'm gonna go in there and just look around. Yeah, it's totally open. I think it's, I think they probably just don't want people driving in here is my guess. So let's go. But yeah, this is that hall right here where they would have given some sort of addresses, or maybe people ate meals in here. It's not very clear. I'm sure some people who would maybe watch the videos could and anything. One thing I want to mention is like anything that I looked at and then did not get it properly. I didn't check to see what all of these individual buildings were, the purpose was back in the day. I just wanted to see what was from what time period. So if anybody knows what any of these were specifically used for, feel free to leave a comment. It would be great to piece that together, because this is all that stands right now, Fort Ord. There's some other buildings, probably, but these are the kind of main ones that you can access from like a public standpoint. Now, I'm not one to treasure hunt or use metal detectors, but I can imagine there's probably a lot of cool stuff. I mean, I'm sure people have ran through this area already with metal detectors, but there's probably so much cool stuff scattered across here. I believe these barracks that were here were built in the 20s. That church right there is pretty old from my understanding, and these were built around a similar time. But it just looks like this landscape is just crazy with all of the cement barricading walls, foundations, the roads that would have gone between the barracks. Some videos I go in a lot more prepared, where I know a lot more about the history, about not only the site, but the specific buildings that I'm looking at, or the general areas. However, this one, I don't know too much about the specifics. I know that it was founded in the 20s. It was significantly built up in the 40s following World War II. And then it was decommissioned, if that's the right term, in the 1990s, and then slowly was converted to this, housing and mixed retail space. And then since then, well, in addition to CSU Monterey as well too, that's the majority of the land is being used for CSU Monterey. However, there's a lot of stuff that is, there was more so a couple of years ago, buildings that were still standing, but there are still some things today that are being taken care of. This church is one of them. It really seems like they're planning to keep this here. Doesn't look like it's gonna be going anywhere. There's a new fire hydrant right here that they put up. It's boarded up nice and tight. And look at this. This is so interesting to me. The fact that there's the cement in front of it that doesn't line up to the, I guess, where the sidewalk would be. So it's definitely like a put a pin in it kind of moment, but still here. But this is, besides those two buildings in this area, which is all new housing, this is kind of the only relic here of Fort Ord back in the early 1900s. People and their soldiers and their families going to church on Sundays, going to pray, hoping their friends would survive deployment. All sorts of stuff. Everything that you would imagine today, people would go as well back then. Roof is new. They're definitely taking care of this thing, at least. But it's such a transitional time right now for this area, because you can see so much that's demoed. All right, so that concludes today's video. Thank you guys for watching. This one was a little bit more of like an urban exploration kind of thing. It was fun in its own right, but didn't have all the facts this time compared to some other videos. But if you made it to the end, thank you for watching, and let me know if this type of video was interesting for you guys, or if you want me to stick to the history. All right, peace.